get ideas for things that can work in your garden, either in small areas or large areas where you want some screening. We're going to see azaleas, camellias, Walter's Viburnum, not only the Densa, which is one variety. We're going to look at a Mrs. Schiller's Delight and the Withlacoochees. We're starting this walk around with a quick look at the thermometer, and it's almost 80 degrees. Let's go check out some of my favorite plants. This is a great time of the day to come out my camellias. They are blooming. I know I'm doing this almost every day, but I'm looking at the blooms and the bud. Let me pull this back up. I don't want any deer leaning their heads over this, getting entangled. There we go. So they are just thriving. And I have to say, oh, ye of little faith, that was who I was during all of these weeks of unusual cold weather and the hard freezes. I was sure they were goners, but they proved me wrong. Now, my Formosa azaleas, the plants themselves are okay. Let's take a look at some of these buds. Those should be plumped up in almost a little magenta color. That one may or may not come back. For the most part, the buds got toasted during the hard freeze. Ah, I see in the distance what looks like some magenta blooms. One of the plants made it through. Oh, look at that. The bottom of the plant, this plant received enough protection. Can see the difference in the buds, not brown. They've got a slight pink tip to them. Had a few flowers. You can see petals down there. There's some hope. At least I got to enjoy my Formosa blooms, which I've been looking forward to all year. My Walter's Viburnum Densa. This shrub grows up to 6 feet tall and as wide. And it gets its name Densa because it's so densely packed with leaves and branches. The Mrs. Schillers, the tree, and even the Withlacoochees have dropped leaves, but not this variety. When I planted it, it was only in a 1-gallon pot, and so it's tripled, quadrupled its size in 3 years. Here are the end shoots. I would love if it would put on a couple of more feet of growth this year. Across the circle garden is another Densa, and this one is almost 2 times the size of that one that we just looked at. You could ask, why is this one so much larger when they're planted in the same circle garden in the same area? The answer is sun. So this one gets full sun more than 8 hours a day. Because of its location, if you compare this location with the other location, they're right across from each other. But the one on the western side goes into shade by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And that is because of the water oak trees. And this side of the circle garden remains in full sun until 4 or 5 o'clock. So that accounts for the size difference. It also accounts for more buds on it, just packed, and more flowers that have opened up. I noticed flying around is a bee. I don't know where it lighted in the bush, but it is happy to have the nectar source because this is early. One of the first pollinators to fly in this early spring, late winter are the bumblebees. This beautiful Walter is now 3 feet tall, and I'm hoping by the end of the summer, if we have good water, good sun, good growing season, that it will add another couple of feet, and that will make it a fabulous screening plant, which is what my goal was here. I planted these so that when I sit on my porch, which is across the way, and I look out, this provides a screen between the porch and the street. We don't have a lot of traffic, but we do have tradespeople, sometimes trucks, and things like that that go up and down this street. I talk about the Walter's Viburnum, the tree, and I have a specimen here. It's kind of hard to see because I call it semi-evergreen in that it sheds some of its leaves. You can see how tall it is. The shrubs next to it are approaching 15 feet. So this is the lead at the very top is probably approaching 20 feet. This will grow to its maximum height, which is about 20 to 30 feet. And when the weather warms up a little more, it will start putting out new leaves and it'll fill in so it won't look so airy open. And I see that I have some work to do because they can form a thicket. There are branches coming up from the roots at the base, and it is time to cut those back if I want this plant to have a single stem. Up close of the tips, it has the characteristic cluster of buds that are opening into the flowers. All of the Walters that I have in my yard have the same bloom form, bloom time, and bloom color. And these blooms have opened just in time for our early spring flying pollinator. Let's go over and see our second shrub, Mrs. Schiller's. This shrub I planted in front of the house to help screen the porch because I knew we wanted to use the porch and we wanted to sit out on the porch. Mrs. Schiller's is a cultivar, and the nice thing about it is that it still has the nectar and pollinator attraction. These plants get full afternoon sun, so covered with buds opening, now flowers that are supporting the early flying pollinator. If we look closely at the plant, you can see tip with the buds that then open into flowers, just like the Densa. Here are my other ones. When they get sun and the right conditions, are loaded with buds. It's amazing. If this lovely weather continues, we will have this plant almost covered with blooms. One thing I wanted to show you, those black, some people would call them berries. They're actually called drubes, but they're the fruit. And there's still some hanging, the bright red berries that develop this fall. Then when they stay on the plant, they get black and are eaten by the birds. The last area for one of the Walters Viburnum varieties, you might call it a shrub. It's kind of halfway between a shrub and a tree. This is the Withlacoochee semi-evergreen because they drop part of their leaves. But look, you can see a flush of greenery starting back because the temperatures have moderated a little bit. And on the tips, like its cousins, the Densa and the Mrs. Schiller's, those familiar clusters of buds that will bloom as white flowers. They look scrawny. They were planted the same time as the Mrs. Schiller's and the Densas. These plants are putting their energy into vertical growth. My fence behind that is at 4 feet tall. The lead is probably almost 5 feet. And they're on their way to their height, which is between 10 and 12 feet tall. Then there will be horizontal growth, and the shrubs will probably touch across so that there'll be a nice screen that develops. And I know this because I had this plant when I lived in Central Florida. Pleased with the results of my yard, especially my native plants. Those are the Walters Viburnum. The other two, the Azaleas and the Camellias, are non-native but Florida-friendly plants. So they're not invasive. They can have a special spot in your garden, just like the native plants, which are hardy and thrive in this area. Just like my plants are adapting, I too am adapting. I've been wearing these sunglasses all day because I just am in the process of cataract surgery. So my eyes need protection, and just like my plants, when they get the right protection, things work out. And as my plants adapt, so I will be adapting to not having to wear glasses, except for, of course, sunglasses. That's going to be such a state change because I've worn glasses now for 40 years. You kind of identify yourself as a person who wears glasses. So you'll be seeing me in the future without glasses once my eyes are healed and all is well. I hope you picked up some ideas for your garden. If you've not tried Walter's Viburnum plants, either the shrubs or the trees, these are certainly hardy native plants, pollinator attractors. They provide nectar, they provide pollen, berries or drupes for birds and small mammals. They support wildlife in our gardens. When we want to have more biodiversity in our yards, then by planting a variety of both native plants as well as the non-native Florida-friendly ones that support wildlife and pollinators, then we are doing our part for all the little things that matter most. And as you can tell, I love going out in my garden and seeing what's growing, what's flitting by. It's always exciting, and watching my plants thrive and seeing, well, what do I need to do to make sure that things are better for them too. The benefit I get back in joy, ability to be close to nature and to feel part of all of the great web of life is immeasurable. So you can have that too, and there are many other plants that we'll be covering in the videos that I make at Garden Yay. Here's an example of one that you might want to watch next that'll give you some ideas as you're preparing for planting in the spring and summer. So if you've not subscribed, please subscribe to Garden Yay